We come to this place for magic, because we need that.
Say, do you want to go see a movie? I'm feeling fat.
As I'm sure a lot of you know, movie theaters are in a lot of trouble at the moment. Well, a lot of things are in trouble, but to keep both this video and my sanity contained, let's stick to the projector, shall we? A lot of folks like to pin the blame entirely on the pandemic, which makes sense. It was around that time that studios began over-relying on streaming or digital rentals while the theaters were closed, and now an over-reliance on over-expensive IP blowouts and shortening theatrical windows unnecessarily has only exacerbated things. But let's be real. You don't sympathize with the man wearing knight's armor when he locks himself in a sauna.
Oh, great heaven!
Theaters were already in a perilous place before the big bug buzzed by. Prices were getting ridiculous for tickets and concessions. The quality of things like seating, projectors, and sound was only getting worse due to penny pinching. And, oh yeah, the looming giant that is the internet. Truly, storytelling in its prime. You'd have to be an idiot not to see the writing on the walls. I should know, I was one of those idiots. Yes, I helped manage a movie theater pre-pandemic while I was in college. I know, I'm sure hearing that means you're just absolutely sopping right now. So that means I saw a lot of these issues firsthand, as well as a change in, decorum among moviegoers. So what do we do when people stop taking us seriously? We put on a goofy hat and buy a Porsche. Theaters have decided to respond to this crisis by adding new features, like even bigger screens, or by straight up becoming Dave & Buster's, adding things like bigger arcades, sports bars, and even pickleball. Whether or not this actually sticks is beyond me, but it's nothing new. Since the dawn of cinema, humans have looked at this art form and went, "More!" So, with CinemaCon having just come and gone not too long ago, and films like Sinners and Steve doing well at the box office, let's take a look through all the schemes, scams, and bamboozlings theaters have sprung on us, all in the quest for more of the mighty dollar. And before we move forward, I want to make clear this specifically is gimmicks for a film that convinced people to go to a theater. Not gimmicks like Boyhood, where it took 12 years to make, gimmicks like Bandersnatch on Netflix, or films made with POV storytelling techniques like Hardcore Henry. These specifically have to be designed to get butts in seats for a theatrical experience. Before we look at the past, let's take a look at what they got now. You know, in retrospect, I probably should have guessed walking in there with a camera wouldn't have worked.
Ugh. Disgusting.
So, you pull open Fandango or Atom Tickets or whatever subscription you have to any of those chains, and you see so many options. Probably way too many options. A decision paralysis level of too many options. Of course, you have the regular showings, which, as a side note, I love that AMC has started calling it Laser by AMC. Like, it's literally just their regular-ass projectors. That is some Disney Parks announcement level upselling. Then we have the classic IMAX. Well, depending on where you live and what theater, it might be IMAX. See, a lot of theaters just take a regular screen and make it bigger, hence the colloquial term LIMAX. Then we have things like Prime or Dolby Cinema, which basically provides better sound, which is great for horror movies. It's like someone's really behind you. Show yourself, fucker. Then we have other gimmicks like RPX and Big D, which are essentially just Regal and AMC's store-brand attempts at IMAX. Better than LIMAX, I guess, but only worth it for very specific movies. Not sure if the Playmobil movie would be enhanced by this kind of experience.
It's a place where wishes come true.
Holy shit! Guess I stand corrected. And what I just said applies tenfold to ScreenX. Basically, the movie theater equivalent of those blurry borders on YouTube videos that are playing 4x3 footage. Speaking of Ds, let's get into the final and arguably most famous Ds. Well, joke's on you, I can't read! Yes, we couldn't talk about theater gimmicks without addressing arguably the most famous of the bunch, 3D. And its ADHD diagnosed brother. Hey, I can make that joke. I have the pass. Though 3D has been a fad that's come in and out as much as I have, it's actually been around nearly as long as film itself. In fact, the first 3D movie was released all the way back in 1922. September 27th, 1922 to be precise. The same day that King Constantine of Greece abdicated the throne near the end of the Greco-Turkish War, so I get why we never learned about it in film school. You know, don't overshadow history. However, the first 3D film, Power of Love, approached the gimmick a little bit differently than what we're used to. Rather than make you think someone was gonna jab your eyes out with a stick, they used each side to give you a different ending by closing one eye. One ending was happy, the other one was tragic. Though I imagine it can only be so tragic when you're forced to watch said ending behind green cellophane. 3D has come a long way since then, though. Whether it's the classic red and blue glasses that came in your copy of Shrek 3D that barely worked, or the Real D 3D glasses that mostly work. When 3D is used at its best, it can immerse and even enhance a film. Look at something like Coraline, a genuinely great example of using 3D just enough to immerse you without it ever going over to full-on gimmick territory. Or even the Avatar films. Given the best thing about those films is exploring beautifully crafted alien worlds, it's all the more incredible in 3D.
Wow, it's like I'm really there.
But what if that's not enough for you? What about the discerning viewer who wants to have wind shot at their face while watching a Nora? Well, have I got the solution for you? That's no big deal. 4DX, being one of the newer formats, is only available in a pretty limited number of theaters, but it has been expanding further. So is Measles. 4DX is essentially a beefed-up, feature-length version of any number of motion simulators you've experienced at a theme park, casino, or fairground. The chairs move, there's smoke and wind effects, bubbles, water, snow, scents, strobe lights to simulate lightning, and even leg ticklers. It's a bit much for most, but depending on the movie, it can be a fun time. For those who can afford it. Though, after the first 20 or so minutes, it can start to get nauseating. Besides, why drop that kind of cash when we have that at home?
Oh, I love Transformers. It's so much better. It's so good.
So that's just about every modern format. But before we get into the past of theater gimmicks, I'm a tad hungry. You guys mind if I take a quick lunch break? I just had to ask. Yes, what would a video about movie theaters be without concessions? Much like movie theaters' profits, not much. We all know the staples: popcorn, soda, nachos and pretzels, maybe a hot dog, some good candy, that one box of candy no one ever seems to buy but is still always stocked. But over the past few years, theater chains have tried expanding their menus to varying degrees of success. It was fairly simple at first. Mozzarella sticks, jalapeno poppers, chicken digits, basically anything they could throw in a fryer or an industrial oven. Then it started getting weird. Gourmet. Salads, build your own burger bars, sliders, mac and cheese, creme brulee cheesecake, pizzas, flatbreads. And that's to say nothing about bars being added in. Because if anything added more to the theatrical experience than the sloshing of spit and cheese, it's booze. The problem with a lot of theater chains adding these insane menus is that they were never properly equipped for it. Concession stands with not too much space suddenly have to add the chaos of monitoring ovens and fryers, and that's to say nothing of the impact it has psychologically. Hear me out. Look at Alamo Drafthouse. People that go there usually know the vibe. Eat food, drink, watch a movie. They also know that there is a very particular set of rules that come with it. They're insanely strict about talking or using your phone during the film. And everyone goes in there either getting that or being a butthurt Sue Happy Susan.
So excuse me for using my phone in USA, the United States of America.
Because everyone understands the rules going in, people are pretty self-aware when it comes to noise and clutter, and chaos is kept to a minimum. But AMCs and Regals don't have that same standard. Bigger theaters, larger crowds, a lot of who may not care about that kind of decorum as much. You throw hot, oily food and booze into that ecosystem, you just threw a man coated in pig's blood into a lion's den. And that's before your 4D show starts.
It's so good.
Speaking of crazy, arguably the most famous addition to the concession stand these days is the popcorn bucket. I remember them being fairly successful back when I worked at movie theaters. Metal bucket, maybe some embossed variant of a film's poster on it with a big old plastic cup for 20 bucks. Around this same time, theaters also started toying with selling merchandise. Basically, they threw Funko Pops and whatever overstock box lunch didn't end up wanting into the concession line. But in 2024, it evolved into something else entirely. Hard to pinpoint when exactly. Who could forget the hilarious fiasco of the worm bucket? Suddenly, these novelty buckets became their own economy for struggling theaters. Every studio release these days has to have one, even films that maybe didn't need one.
That's a penis.
But the craziest thing is that the opening day lines for these things are almost Comic-Con level long. Collectors and scalpers alike have found reason to wait as early as 5 a.m. for some of these. And hey, more power to them, I guess. Me personally, not my thing. I have other hobbies. So that's the overview of available offerings these days. But that's far from the history of how folks have been lured back to the movies over the years. Interestingly enough, sometimes the theater's gimmick was the theater. The Cinerama Dome is arguably the most famous example of this, having one of the largest screens ever built at the time, with a handful of films being shot in a format made best to view on this one screen. Even near the end of its life, it made for an interesting marketing tool. Even the concept of palace theaters could be considered gimmicky to a certain extent. They really gave theaters a sense of theater the other way. That, alongside things like intermissions, really made you feel like you're about to experience an event. And once in the theater, there were a number of ways they could go about a gimmick. You could have been handed something on the way in, like this. Made famous by John Waters, and then made famous again by the Rugrats and John Waters, the concept was simple. A number would appear on screen, prompting you to scratch that number on your card and get a whiff that would theoretically enhance the viewing experience. Did it? I don't know, does playing Bean Boozled make you enjoy jelly beans more? Or maybe you were handed a ghost viewer. A nifty take on 3D that allowed you to see ghosts in the red lens or hide from them using the blue lens. It was specifically designed for the film 13 Ghosts, directed by... Oh, we'll get to you later. Once you finally got to your seat, you may have thought you were finally safe from any further gimmicks. But sometimes the gimmicks were built in. Take 1974's Earthquake, for example. Yes, if nothing else, you've at least learned from this video that that segment of the studio tour is based on something. Earthquake was the first film to implement a new sound system called Sensurround. Not to be confused with surround sound or being surrounded by sounding. Don't ask. Theaters would install low-frequency speakers equipped with horns in the back corners and directly underneath the screen. These speakers would play randomized noise patterns over the film's audio to simulate the sensation of being in an earthquake. Needless to say, the film didn't do well in key areas. Though it also didn't help that the noise patterns used for Earthquake were taken from the actual Sylmar earthquake of 1971, an earthquake that killed over 60 people. The problem with a lot of these in-theater, built-in gimmicks was that they required a lot of installation or setup without a guaranteed payoff. Hence why they didn't happen often and didn't last long. A lot of the times, any in-theater gimmicks were relegated to classic midnight ghost show techniques. Costume characters running through the crowds, actors planted in the audience to fake kidnappings or abductions, blacking out the entire theater for an extra scare, and so on.
That's gonna kill me!
But theaters did make a few other attempts at more long-term approaches, like the gimmick Percepto for the Tingler, which used surplus wing dicing motors as buzzers under seats for when the Tingler would strike.
I don't know. Stop asking me.
The film, directed by... Oh, you just can't help yourself, can you? Let's instead look at I'm Your Man and Mr. Payback. Back in the 90s, Lowe's Theaters, for anyone like me who was confused, they got bought out by AMC, attempted to revitalize their business by installing mounted joysticks to all of their seats, allowing for audiences to vote on where a story should go as they watch it. It wasn't the first time this had been attempted. Kino Automat from 1967 had a moderator stop the film at a certain point, turn the lights on, and take an audience vote on what should happen next. It only played in one theater in Canada though, so let's be real, these two films here really are the first time. In all honesty, this seems more like an interesting idea to try nowadays. It's actually been done successfully in Japan this year with the film Hypnosis Mic, which allowed the audience to vote on who won various rap battles throughout the film. But this was the 90s, a time for big ideas without the means of making them work.
That's that damn cat again!
Rather than standard film projection, these two movies were projected via multi-laserdisc system. That way the film could automatically cut to the right narrative path depending on how the audience voted. The problem here is that laserdisc quality is lower than even DVDs. So imagine a film whose quality is somewhere between DVD and VHS, blown up to full theatrical size. Or better yet, don't. The other issue is that these films feel more like tech demos than anything else. Neither of them are longer than 30 minutes and have plots that are either way too simple or needlessly complicated. Mr. Payback was about an android who got playful revenge on folks committing petty crimes or being overall nuisances, while I'm Your Man involved. Money scams, assassination attempts, the FBI, a house party, models, guns, cartoon sound effects, all of it shot like a movie they'd endure on Best of the Worst and film in less than a week with no second takes. Needless to say, this didn't work out. Hell, this experiment even has other films that have never seen the light of day since their theatrical release, like Ride for Your Life, about an alien cycling race.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Most of the time, movie gimmicks were mostly relegated to the films themselves. One of the more famous instances of this was Clue from 1985, where theaters would receive different endings on who the murderer was. This encouraged audiences to see the film multiple times at different locations to get every possible outcome.
Clue. It's a comedy with 3 different endings. Whodunit depends on where you see it. Rated PG.
Less successful examples of film gimmicks included My World Dies Screaming, a 1958 film that flashed images for a single frame to further invoke fear in its viewers. Or how about Wicked Wicked? This film uses 2 projectors playing simultaneously to tell the story of a masked killer from both his perspective and his victims. Can you guess who the killer is?
Right!
Man, remake this as a true crime doc and have the second screen be TikTok slime videos, and this would have predicted the future. And that's about the end of this go-around. Sure, many films promoted themselves as shot in Blanco-Vision or featuring Blanco-Rama, but a lot of these were just simple techniques like better film stock, clearer picture, or early attempts at coloring. Nothing revolutionary, but necessary in a time where folks like, fine, you're up.
Sorry, it's my turn.
For anyone who doesn't know, William Castle was the king of theatrical gimmicks back in the day. From his film Macabre requiring an offered life insurance policy before viewing in case anyone died of fright, hell, at certain screenings he had nurses and ambulances waiting outside, to having a fright break near the end of 1961's Homicidal, giving people a chance to leave if they were too scared and being forced to sign a card labeling them a coward in the coward's corner. He was willing to try anything and everything he could to get butts in seats. Hell, he's not only the reason that the movie Psycho exists, but incidentally, he helped create the concept of modern showtimes. Seriously, back in the day, they just played the movie over and over again and you would just buy a ticket and walk in whenever. Hitchcock's gimmick for Psycho was that nobody was allowed in once the movie started, creating an air of intrigue, and, unintentionally, the modern standard for film shows today. And so ends our journey through the world of movie theaters. Though many of these offerings have found success, they'll never be on the same financial level as good old-fashioned zeitgeist. Look at Barbenheimer, Wicked. All of these projects found their success naturally through cultural anticipation or good old-fashioned word of mouth. Hell, the only reason Megalopolis found a modicum of success was because of its brief period of memeability. At the end of the day, studios and theaters just need to be patient. Give it time. Theaters will bounce back. Maybe by adapting, maybe by embracing the simplicity of the theatrical experience. All I know is, the studios aren't fucking helping.
Oh god, I've been talking about theater so long, I got stuck inside. Can I get out? Oh, there's the doors, thank god. Oh my, where'd they go? I'm stuck in the back rooms. Oh god, it's nothing but just more theaters. But that's a weird noise. I don't like that. Somebody help me. I'm in